So Joe Karp is our guest, the final guest for our Saturday morning. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. How are you, Anita?
Oh, I'm doing okay, and we're just trying to get over this last little bit of a cold. But, you know, Joe, when we talk about, we were listening with Dr. Mencia, from the first time he came on the show, his office has grown so amazingly, and now he's even opening another office. And that's the same thing that you've done. You started, it was just a sole practitioner, and all of a sudden, look at you.
We've got 6 lawyers now, including myself. So, and we're still our practice is still limited, so it's not like we've added other areas of law. We've just continued to work and serve our clients and take care of them and their families, and they have been kind enough to stay with us and send us friends and relatives, and it's a nice thing. And of course, we do our senior survival workshops, although even those we're slowing down on because there's just so many of them you can do, and you have to always be prepared to take care of your clients. So we're not even doing them again until October, and I'll be back on the air before the October workshops. So we have been fortunate enough to have a good relationship with our clients, so they keep coming back for more. And some of the things they come back for are less desirable than others, such as helping families take care of people when they die. In fact, that's an interesting thing I almost want to talk about with you, if you don't mind.
No, please.
Many people, when they did a trust, were conceptually led to believe, either by their own misconception or some misleading information, that if you do a trust, you don't need any professional help when somebody dies. And that's the case some of the time, but not all of the time. So because there are legal requirements, you're not in the court system, so it's not probate, but you still have both legal requirements. Florida law says you must do this. The IRS says you must file a final income tax return. If there's an estate you're blessed to have a taxable estate, and people say, why would you consider it blessed? Because that means you've got individually over $5.3 million. That's a blessing. You may have to file an estate tax return. You may have to sell the house or the condo. You may have to pay bills. You may have to do certain things that take care of it. And so our clients have been educated that we're there to assist on that. And the interesting thing I have discovered is how many people who have done trusts with other lawyers come to us to review their documents, sometimes fix their documents or update them. So fix doesn't mean necessarily they were bad when they were done, but update them. And many people need updating because they don't realize they have mandatory tax planning because they did it when the magic number was $600,000 for taxes, and they don't face any taxable consequences, or they need updating. But they come and they say, I want to know that you will be there for my family when I die. The number of people who have finally figured it out, who say, I need extra cards for my family. I want my children to know where to find you. And we now have 1.5 lawyers working in assisting families post-mortem and 4 full-time paralegals. Now, some of them are probates and things from either people who didn't do trusts or didn't properly fund their trust. Many, though, are from either probates or trust administration assistance from people we never even worked for. We never did their documents, and all of a sudden they found out that the person that did their estate plan doesn't do that. So a lot of people are starting to learn, death doesn't end it all. There's still stuff has to be done, and their family members are not sophisticated enough to handle it, or they don't have the time. So, and by handle it means we do some assistance. We're not in control of your money. So it's just an interesting thing that we're developing, and that's one of the reasons our business has continued to build, is we help families after the fact. So we are very fortunate.
Yes, it's true. I mean, I have been a supporter of Joe Karp for many years. We have used, of course, his services, but he is special. He isn't a typical attorney. They were making a joke about this when Dr. Mencia was here, but Joe has so much heart in what he does, and he's such a sweet man. And so I think that it goes into becoming successful. A lot of people want to expand, they want to grow, but they don't have that special something that draws people to them. And I can understand why people are having their families all want to know who where you are or who you are so that they can do that. But Joe, just, moving along with that, one thing that you said to me, and I think and you've said it before, and I think it's very important, when someone has worked with you for years and at the time that they came, everything was a certain way in their life, with their families, their children, their husbands, their wives. But I don't think that as things start to change, they change. They don't go back and say to you, and I know that's why you try to get everyone to come back every 3 years. It's extremely important, really.
It is so important. People don't realize it, and I tell everybody, certain things in your life have to be reviewed. I mean, if you have investments in the stock market and in mutual funds, you shouldn't just ignore them after you put them in. You should look at them and see whether they're doing what you expect them to do and whether they're going to continue to do what you think. If you have health, if you have a body, which we all do, then you have to go to the doctor for the annual checkup just to make sure that everything is as you think it is. If you have the desire to ensure that what you did as an estate plan works, then you should deal with it. And I give the Joan Rivers warning, which is somebody who's perfectly healthy on a Wednesday night and working and eating out and entertaining. On Thursday morning, there could be a change. So you got to take care of it before it hits the fan. You've got to just understand that things change so that regularly you should check it. That's all. I mean, we check other things in our lives automatically. We know to do that. They tell you, to check when you turn your clocks back and forth, you should check your batteries and your smoke detector. Well, it's a good reason for that, because until you have a smoke incident, you're not going to know if it works otherwise. And if you don't know and it doesn't work because you thought, well, this thing hasn't gone off in years, it's fine. The batteries are corroded, perhaps. So you just got to check things. And at least for our clients, number one, we don't charge them for the review. Now, if they change their documents or if they change their estate plan, then obviously we got to charge for our services. But for many of our clients, the review constitutes, number one, that their documents are in order, especially the ones who come every 3 years. Now, they may have changed it over the last 20. And two, sometimes they realize that their bank accounts are mistitled or their brokerage accounts are mistitled, or they didn't know they had an asset that I point out that they must have. So I say, oh, you have Metropolitan Life Insurance. How long ago did you buy that policy? 30 years ago. Well, do you know that company demutualized? And do you have stock? And it's amazing what you find out. I had a client tell me 4 weeks ago, she's been my client 15 years. she's recently, within the last 5 years, remarried after her husband's death, and she came in, and he had died like more than 15 years ago, came in to review her documents, and she said, I should put my husband in charge of my health care at this point. It shouldn't be my daughter's. And they were comfortable that he could sit in on her meeting. And we're going over the stuff, and he turned to her and said, "You haven't told him, have you?" And I'm looking, and she said, "You haven't told him what?" She said, "You named your two daughters as co-trustees, co-personal representatives, co-powers of attorney. You didn't tell him your one daughter is bipolar," you mentioned her name, "that she can't handle any stress and the two of them don't get along. You've never told him that, did you?" I almost fell off my chair.
Oh, my gosh.
So sometimes it takes time also for people to have a comfort zone to come to terms with their own realities, and they share that with me. And then, I explained to her all of the difficulty she is creating by that situation. And it's not that the bipolar daughter is relatively functioning when she's on her meds. The two sisters get along at a distance. As long as they don't have to rely upon each other, they get along. But the daughter without any disorder gets very frustrated when she has to do anything. He said, "You remember when they were trying to plan your birthday party, your 80th birthday party, how the one sister without the disorder was just totally frustrated because she wouldn't respond, she wouldn't answer. And it wasn't because she's bad, she's got emotional issues."
Yep.
So coming back, talking about it, thinking about it is very critical. By the way, I have an interesting comment for Dr. Mencia,
Okay.
which is, I am an ambulance chaser. The difference is I don't go with a retainer agreement to sue somebody. I'm running saying, "Do you have your health care power of attorney and your HIPAA release?" I'm saying, "Do you have your right medical papers in order?" I'm not chasing with a retainer. I'm chasing with health care documents to make sure they're in order.
Yeah, I understand that, and you're very smart. I wanted everyone to know, if you do want to get in touch with Joe Karp in the Karp law firm, their number is 1-800-893-9911. Again, that's 1-800-893-9911. And if you want to go on their website, you would go to karplaw.com. That's KARP law, LAW.com. They have a fascinating website, and you will get all your information. You'll also see when the next seminars are coming up in October. And it's really important to get yourself a very good attorney. I wanted to ask you, though, something. When people do not have relatives, what do they do in their will?
It depends. Very interesting. The choices are broad. There's a couple of issues that they have. Number one, who are they, and it's broader than that. It's who are they going to leave in charge of things to assist them? Who's going to be making their medical decisions? Who's going to be handling their financial affairs for them while they're alive if they're incapacitated? Who's going to handle their estate when they die? And then who's going to get the money? And you notice what I think is the least important. Who's going to get the money? What did I think was the most important? Who's going to make their health care decisions? So it varies, and in some cases they have near and dear friends, and they have that, and they name these people. Many times, though, their near and dear friends are their peers and have their own issues. So they have, my good friend, but her husband's got some dementia. I can't put her in charge. It's too much for her. Frequently, people in that situation name either financial institutions if they've got enough money to justify it. Many of them name me at this point because I had been serving as a fiduciary. My clients and I have clients for whom I make healthcare decisions at this point if they can't. And we have a serious heart-to-heart. I had a a lady I met with yesterday who's been a client for 12, 13 years, who met with Jenny Bernstein in my office and about 6 weeks ago and wanted to change her documents to put me in charge of her health care and her financial affairs because she has no family. She has one dear friend who is now no longer up to the task. And Jenny called me and said, would you be willing to serve? And I know who the lady is. And I said, yes, but I got to talk to her. And yesterday she signed her papers. And we went in and we had a serious conversation. She said, well, do you want what I do? Do you want to know what I want to do with my money when I'm dead? I said, that's already in your documents, and we know what your assets are, and we'll follow through with that. But I want to talk to you. Let's talk about what if you were hit by a bus today going home in your car. I got to talk to you about what your standards are for quality of life. At what point do you want to throw in the towel or not? Where are you coming from? Let's discuss scenarios. And everybody has different answers. She wants reasonable risks taken to preserve her life. If the reasonable risks mean that she will have a reasonable quality of life. And we discussed that and we started to walk around it. But I have another client that I'm named for who was just diagnosed a while ago with lung cancer. And I said, what stage lung cancer are you at? She said, I don't know. I don't want to know. I've told them do nothing. I want no intervention whatsoever other than painkillers.
Really?
I'm ready to check out, and I'll go to Oregon when I'm ready.
Wow.
Now, and that's where she's coming from. She wanted me to change her documents because her best friend, who had been named first, was moved to Austin, Texas. And she said, I don't want to be a burden on her. Well, we were supposed to sign yesterday, and Wednesday, my client had a seizure, and she was in the hospital. We went to the hospital, not me, but my staff went to the hospital. One of the attorneys and staff went there Friday, and they got there, and she was not competent to sign at that point. We don't know if that was just a temporary status because of medication and the seizure, or whether she'll never sign her new documents. She was changing her will. She was changing some of her beneficiaries.
Wow.
But so we never know. But a lot of people end up using me, and I have, for those clients, I have a 24-hour number that actually rings and forwards to my cell phone wherever I am, so that I get to do it. I have been called in New York. I have been called in numerous places. I've been called in California. I've been called when I'm in a movie theater, because I'm willing to assume that responsibility for the clients that want it, that they understand when that's happening. I'm going to be paid for my time. I can't just do that for free. I'm not seeking the job. I always say, don't you have somebody better than me, somebody who's there, somebody who knows? But that is a reality of many people's lives, where sometimes they have relatives, but they don't want to impose on them, or they don't think they can make the decisions.
Right.
They don't think they can manage the money. And sometimes they have me with a relative managing the money, because my son is honest, but he'll never get to it. And I want to make sure all of my kids get their money. And I want to make sure this gets done. And I had one lady who had just one son. He's still there, and she named me with him. And her reason she named me with him on the money was, I have never not paid a bill on time. My son, God love him, she said, just doesn't do paperwork. And I don't want, even after I'm dead, my credit to be affected. I want to make sure all of my bills are paid when I'm dead. He wouldn't try to screw anybody out of the money. He just wouldn't get to it. He wouldn't understand the importance of it.
Procrastination,
So it
right?
really depends. What?
Procrastination.
Yeah, just avoidance and procrastination. So it really depends on a number of variables, but sometimes people who are unfortunate enough to not have a good network of people to do it end up having to use me, and I don't mean that I'm a bad guy to do it. It's unfortunate that their choices are so limited. I'm blessed. I'm blessed with my family. I have a wide support network. I have not only my kids, but I have my brothers, and I have my brothers' kids, and I have cousins, and I have all sorts of people that I know that would take care of things for me and my wife if that ever happened. And they're not sophisticated in this stuff, but they're smart enough to get professional help to assist them. So they are attentive, and the people who are named are attentive to detail.
Okay, so this new idea, I'm going to spend it all. You know, a lot of the older adults now say, listen, I don't need to leave it to my kids. I'm just going to spend it all. Are you getting some of that?
I get that in theory, but I don't get it in practice because it's a generational issue. They don't know when they're going to die. They can't spend it all. They don't know that's more a wishful thinking. They really can't. I mean, you can't change old habits. People who were raised in the Depression or people who just saw what happened in the stock market and the real estate market, they're scared because they don't want to be broke. They don't really care as much as to what they leave their kids. But since they can't time the spend it all thing, they don't come close.
So
now, obviously, if they outlive their money just because of normal lifestyle, that's a separate issue, and that unfortunately happens to people who just lived longer than they thought, didn't make enough, or spent too much along the way. But I don't think most people really will spend it all. It's a good line, but if we all knew if they all knew the day they were going to die and they weren't going to kill themselves when they wrote the last check, they would do more. But they're very careful. They're very concerned, and they don't want to be. The bottom line is the reason they don't want to spend it all is, quote, I don't want to be a burden on my children. They don't care as much as what they're going to leave their children, but they don't want to be burdensome to their children either, especially economically.
Well, the big issue, I think, as I see it, though, with a lot of the older adults is they have children, and the children don't really pay much attention to them, and they've made their own friends, and they go and they do their own things, and yet they have a responsibility in their mind that they should leave something to their children. But years ago, I think it was very different. I think people always left things to their children. It was just a given. I just think there's a different attitude today.
There's a lot of attitudinal changes, and part of it is just demographics and geography. I mean, it used to be the children were physically and therefore emotionally and actually closer. You know, when your children are scattered all over the country and you're down here and your retirement years in Florida don't evolve around your family. You know that your mother hung out with her sisters.
That's true.
They had family stuff. Their world was their family. And here, because their day-to-day existence is not their family, it's their friends that they have made, and they're really, I mean, it's a miracle of how this whole thing was established, that people in their 70s can develop significant, deep friendships as if they had known each other for 30 years. They get because they spend so much intense time with each other. They haven't spent as much time with a non-family member since grammar school.
Yep.
So they develop these strong bonds, and their kids are far more removed, and their kids' lives are hectic. the microwave and the computer has not made us an age of free time.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how we thought that everything was going to be... It made a great difference, and I think the biggest difference is that families really now have come back a little bit because of Skype, and there are a lot of things that they were far away, but now there are things that are happening. So one never knows. But Joe, your profession and what you've done, what you've created, I understand why people want you to be their, whether it's a co-trustee or something, because you are so trustworthy. And I hope that people, if you haven't had anything yet done with an elder law attorney, and please go to an elder law attorney. Don't go to a regular attorney. It's not the same. But go to Joe Karp.
To a certified one.
Right, certified, board certified. But Joe Karp is someone you definitely will want to talk with. Thanks, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Now I'm off to volunteer at the Special Olympics.
Okay, have fun. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Just join us, please.
You've been listening to The Stars Program with your host, Anita Finley. Join us every Saturday at this same time for another edition of Seniors Taking Active Roles in Society, right here on AM 740 WSBR. The opinions expressed on this sponsored program are strictly those of its host, guests, and callers and are not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.